Welcome back to the channel. Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan, Latin American Spanish, born 18th of July 1990. Commonly known as Canelo or Saul, is a Mexican professional boxer. He has held multiple world championships in 4 weight classes, from light middleweight to light heavyweight, including unified titles in 3 of those weight classes and lineal titles in 2. In 2021, Alvarez became the first and only boxer in history to become the undisputed super middleweight champion, holding this distinction until July 2024. He has also held the Ring Magazine super middleweight title since 2020. Alvarez began his professional boxing career at age 15 and by 20 became the youngest boxer to claim the World Boxing Council (WBC) light middleweight title in Indalers. In 2013, he beat Austin Trout to win the World Boxing Association WBA unified version and ring titles. In the same year, he lost his WBC and ring light middleweight titles to Floyd Mayweather Jr. in his first professional defeat. He defeated Miguel Cotto to win the WBC and ring middleweight titles in 2016. That same year, he returned to light middleweight to beat Liam Smith to win the World Boxing Organization WBO title. In 2017, he fought unified middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin to a split draw. Their rematch in 2018 saw Alvarez beat Golovkin to become the WBA super version, WBC, and ring middleweight champion. The following year, he beat Rocky Fielding for the WBA super middleweight title, regular version, and won the International Boxing Federation IBF middleweight title from Daniel Jacobs in 2019. Later that year, Alvarez made his light heavyweight debut, knocking out former unified champion Sergey Kovalev to claim the WBO title. He went on to beat 3 unbeaten fighters, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, and Caleb Plant, to win all 4 titles at super middleweight, a feat he achieved inside 12. In May 2022, he returned to light heavyweight and challenged for the WBA super light heavyweight title, but was defeated by Dmitry Bivol via unanimous decision. Known as an excellent counterpuncher, Alvarez is able to exploit openings in his opponent's guards while avoiding punches with head and body movement. He is also known as a formidable body marches. The Ring ranked Alvarez as the world's best boxer, pound for pound, from November 7, 2019 to March 16, 2022. One of boxing's biggest ever pay-per-view stars, 8, he is consistently one of the highest paid athletes in the world, making Forbes' list of the world's highest paid athletes in 2019, 2022, and he was the top earning boxer of 2023, earning a reported $110 million. Early life. In an interview, Alvarez explained that he was born on the outskirts of Guadalajara, Jalisco, but his family is originally from Los Reyes, Michoacán. At the age of 5, his family moved to their current home of Juanacatlán, Jalisco. Growing up on his family's farm, he learned horseback riding, which he continues today. Alvarez is the youngest of 8 children, 7 of them boys. All of his brothers also became professional boxers. Among his brothers are welterweight boxers Ramon Alvarez, Ricardo Alvarez, and former WBA interim world champion Rigoberto Alvarez. Canelo in Spanish is the masculine word for cinnamon, which is a common nickname for people with red hair. In Mexico, it is common for people to associate red hair with the Irish soldiers who fought for Mexico in the St. Patrick's Battalion during the Mexican-American War. Speaking about his ancestry, Alvarez once said, "There might have been an Irish grandfather somewhere back in my past." Canelo's neighbors nicknamed him Jicama con Chile, which translates as jicama with chili flakes, a popular snack in Mexico. Amateur career. Alvarez started boxing when he was around 13 years old after watching his older brother Rigoberto debut as a professional boxer. In 2004, he won the silver medal at the Junior Mexican National Championships, held in Sinaloa. He became the 2005 Junior Mexican National Boxing Champion in Tuxtla Gutierrez at the age of 15. His amateur record was 44-2 with 12 knockouts. Professional career. Early career. Alvarez turned professional at 15, shortly after his championship at the Junior Nationals, because his trainers at the time, father and son team Chepo and Eddie Reynoso, were unable to find suitable junior opponents for him. In his first 19 months as a professional, he knocked out 11 of his 13 documented opponents, all of whom were significantly older. The elder Reynoso stated in 2013 that Alvarez had fought 10 more times in that span, winning all 10 by knockout KO, but that these fights, apparently in small venues in the Mexican state of Nayarit, were so poorly documented that it was not worth the trouble to seek to have the record corrected. Were this to be verified, his record would be 71-2-2 with 49 knockouts. His weight fluctuated in his first 3 years as a professional, including 2 documented fights within the light welterweight limit of 140 pounds. One against Abraham Gonzalez in Alvarez's official debut, and the other against Juan Hernandez in his 6th official bout, before he settled in the welterweight division at 147 pounds. Alvarez's 3rd official bout of his career was a win over future IBF lightweight champion Miguel Vasquez on 20 January 2006 in his hometown of Guadalajara, Jalisco. On 28 June 2008, Alvarez defeated Vasquez again in a rematch. He also made world history on that fight card when he and all 6 of his brothers fought on the same night, with Canelo being the youngest. The only downside was that 3 of them failed to win their pro debuts. The other 4 more experienced brothers won. On 6 March 2010, he got a crushing 3rd-round KO over Brian Camachis in Tuxtla Gutierrez, Chiapas. Alvarez then defeated Jose Cotto on the undercard of Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Shane Mosley to retain his WBC NABF welterweight title. Light middleweight. His 6th-round technical knockout TKO win over Luciano Leonel Cuello for the WBC silver light middleweight title was held at the Vicente Fernandez Arena. During the post-fight interview, Mexican singer Vicente Fernandez gave Alvarez a horse. He was also given a horse by the mayor of Tepic, where Alvarez sometimes trains. He next faced the former WBC welterweight champion Carlos Baldomir at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California, on the Shane Mosley vs. Sergio Mora undercard. Baldomir stated in a pre-fight interview that he wanted the winner of Mora vs. Mosley, as he said, "After I knock out El Canelo." Baldomir weighed in at 153.4 pounds for the bout. That was contracted for 151 pounds. In California, if a fighter is overweight, he is penalized 20% of his purse, and that percent is given to the other fighter. However, Alvarez declined to take the extra $12,000 from Baldomir. In the 6th round, Alvarez landed a crushing blow that knocked Baldomir out cold. With the victory, Alvarez became just the 2nd boxer ever to stop Carlos Baldomir and the 1st boxer ever to knock him out. Alvarez then successfully defended his light middleweight title by unanimous decision against former world champion Lovemore Nadeau in Veracruz. It was a competitive fight despite the wide margins on the official scorecards of 119-109, 120-108, and 120-108. First World Championship. Main articles: Canelo Alvarez vs. Matthew Hatton, Canelo Alvarez vs. Ryan Rhodes, and Canelo Alvarez vs. Alfonso Gomez. Alvarez was in line as mandatory challenger for the winner of the vacant WBC light middleweight title bout between Manny Pacquiao and Antonio Margarito. However, Pacquiao, who was the victor, wrote to the WBC stating he had no intention of defending the title and it was declared vacant. On the 5th of March 2011, Alvarez defeated European welterweight champion Matthew Hatton via unanimous decision for the vacant WBC light middleweight belt. The bout was televised on HBO and took place at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. Alvarez was docked a point in the 7th round, which was uniformly scored 9-9 for hitting after the break. All 3 ringside judges scored the bout 119-108 in favor of Alvarez, who landed 47% of his 626 punches, including 50-30% of his power shots. Hatton connected with just 25% of his 546 total blows. In a fight that averaged 1.4 million viewers on HBO. Alvarez successfully defended his newly awarded WBC title against Darfur, ranked ring light middleweight and current European light middleweight champion Ryan Rhodes. Alvarez defeated Rhodes via TKO in the 12th round on 18th June 2011 in Guadalajara, Jalisco. The fight averaged 1.6 million viewers on HBO. On the 17th of September 2011, Alvarez successfully defended that same WBC title against the contender competitor Alfonso Gomez at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, winning via TKO in the 6th round. Gomez won a majority of the first 5 rounds after Alvarez knocked him down in the first round. Alvarez was looking for one shot and got it in the 6th round when he backed Gomez up with a right hand. He then followed up with a flurry to get the referee to jump in and stop the fight. Alvarez versus Cintron. Main article: Canelo Alvarez versus Kermit Cintron. Alvarez defeated Kermit Cintron via TKO in the 5th round. Alvarez spent the first 3 rounds feeling out his opponent Cintron, a former welterweight champion, before punishing the Puerto Rican with body shots and straight right hands in the 4th round. He knocked Cintron down once and had him in trouble at the end of the round, but Cintron was saved by the bell. In the 5th round, Cintron came out and caught Alvarez with some combinations, but Alvarez eventually overpowered him with several powerful straight right hands, and the referee stepped in and stopped it. The fight averaged 1.5 million viewers on HBO, Boxing After Dark. Alvarez vs. Mosley. Richard Schaefer announced that Alvarez's next bout would co-feature on the undercard of Miguel Cotto's clash with Floyd Mayweather Jr. at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. On the 11th of February 2012, Shane Mosley was announced as Alvarez's next opponent in May for his WBC light middleweight title. Alvarez defeated Mosley via unanimous decision after 12 rounds. Alvarez versus Lopez. Alvarez was originally set to fight top 10 ring light middleweight and former welterweight champion Paul Williams on the 15th of September 2012. However, on the 27th of May 2012, a motorcycle accident in the U.S. state of Georgia paralyzed Williams from the waist down, ending his boxing career. Alvarez's possible opponents for his September bout were James Kirkland, Austin Trout, Delvin Rodriguez, and most notably, Victor Ortiz. Alvarez was scheduled to defend his title against former welterweight titleist Victor Ortiz in the main event of a Showtime pay-per-view PPV card dubbed Knockout Kings at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. However, on the 23rd of June, Ortiz was unable to defeat underdog Cosicito Lopez in what was supposed to be a tune-up fight at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, losing due to referee stoppage, broken jaw, and canceling his bout with Alvarez as a result. Due to this upset, Lopez was instead penciled in to face Canelo at the MGM Grand on the 15th of September for Alvarez's WBC light middleweight title. Alvarez won the fight via 5th-round TKO after dominating Lopez from start to finish, staying undefeated and increasing his record of 41-0-1. The fight averaged 1.4 million on Showtime. Canelo earned $2 million for the fight, and Lopez a smaller amount of $212,500. Alvarez vs. Trout. His next fight took place on the 20th of April 2013 at the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas, against Austin Trout. The fight was supposed to take place during Cinco de Mayo weekend as the co-main event to Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Robert Guerrero. However, due to a contract disagreement between Alvarez and Mayweather regarding their potential fight on the 14th of September 2013, Alvarez opted to headline his own card instead. In front of 39,247 fans, Alvarez successfully defended his WBC light middleweight title and won both the WBA regular and vacant ring light middleweight titles. During the first few rounds, Trout seemed to have a good game plan. However, Alvarez's power took over after the 3rd round, eventually scoring a knockdown in the 7th round to give Trout the first knockdown of his career. Alvarez set up the knockdown with a pawing left jab, followed by the straight right hand. The fight was closer than expected, but Alvarez still managed to dominate Trout throughout the fight with impressive head movement and shocking power. All 3 judges' scorecards were in favor of Alvarez with a fair margin, 115-112 from Filipino judge Ray Danseco, 116-111 from Texas judge Oren Schellenberger, and 118-109 from South African official Stanley Christodoulou. Video 1. Although the last scorecard 118-109 created controversy, the majority of sport analysts had Alvarez winning by at least 2 points. CompuBox stats showed that Trout was the busier fighter, landing 154 of 769 punches thrown, 20%, and Alvarez was the more accurate puncher, landing 124 of his 431 thrown, 29%. Immediately after the bout, Trout stated that he hadn't underestimated Alvarez, but that he trained to fight a completely different fighter. Alvarez vs. Mayweather. Main article, Floyd Mayweather Jr. vs. Canelo Alvarez.
Alvarez at Los Pinos, 2013.
Alvarez, Ring Magazine's #1 ranked light middleweight and the unified WBA regular and WBC champion, fought against Ring Magazine's #1 pound-for-pound fighter, WBA super light middleweight champion, WBC, and Ring Magazine welterweight champion, Floyd Mayweather Jr. on the 14th of September 2013. Mayweather held a world title at welterweight, 147 pounds, but he also still owned a light middleweight title, 154 pounds, which he won by outpointing Miguel Cotto in May 2012. He was moving back up in weight to face Alvarez with their belts on the line, although the fight was contested at a catchweight of 152 pounds. The titles disputed for the bout were Alvarez's WBC and Ring light middleweight titles and Mayweather's WBA super light middleweight title. On fight night, Mayweather reportedly weighed 150 pounds and Alvarez came in at 165 pounds. In front of a sold-out crowd of 16,746 at the MGM Garden, Mayweather defeated Alvarez via majority decision. Judge C.J. Ross scored the fight 104-14, a draw. Judge Dave Moretti had it 116-112, and Craig Metcalf scored it 117-111. Judge Ross retired after this fight. Speaking of the controversial scorecard, Mayweather said, "I can't control what the judges do." CompuBox stats showed Mayweather's dominance in the fight. He landed 232 of 505 punches, 46%, while Alvarez connected on 117 of 526 thrown, 22%. Mayweather earned a guaranteed $41.5 million to Alvarez $5 million, 64. Catchweight.
Alvarez vs. Angulo.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez vs. Alfredo Angulo. On 9th of January 2014, Golden Boy chief executive Richard Schaefer confirmed a deal had been made for a fight between Alvarez and 31-year-old Mexican boxer Alfredo Angulo, 22-3, 18 KOs, to take place on the 8th of March 2014 on Showtime PPV at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. In March, ESPN reported the fight would take place at a catchweight of 155 pounds due to Alvarez not being able to make the light middleweight limit of 154 pounds. For the PPV fight, Alvarez agreed to pay $100,000 of his minimum $1.25 million purse to Angulo, which would raise his purse $850,000. Also in the negotiations, Alvarez agreed to weigh no more than 168 pounds on fight night. This was Alvarez's first of 5 fights which took place at the 155-pound catchweight. On fight night, Alvarez weighed 174 pounds on Showtime's scale and Angulo weighed 170 pounds. In front of 14,610 at the MGM, Alvarez came out strong, throwing combinations. In a fairly lopsided beating, Alvarez scored a 10th-round stoppage over Angulo, punctuated by a lead left uppercut. The end of the fight began in round 6, when Angulo's left eye started swelling. When the referee waved the fight off, the crowd was displeased and booed. At the time of stoppage, 2 judges had it 89-82, and the third judge had it 88-83, all in favor of Alvarez. Angulo stated post-fight how he was unhappy with the stoppage. "I told Tony he did the wrong job tonight. The referee tells us to take care of ourselves at all times. I can take care of myself. My plan was to work harder in the final 4 or 3 rounds. I had good preparation for this fight." His trainer Virgil Hunter was also unhappy with referee Tony Weeks. "I'm very upset. I told the referee and the doctor that if Canelo put 2 or 3 shots together that I would stop the fight. He landed 1 punch. Everyone knows Alfredo was coming on strong. Everyone knows that."
Alvarez vs. Lara.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez vs. Erislandy Lara. Alvarez fought Erislandy Lara on the 12th of July 2014 at the MGM Grand in a non-title match. Lara's WBA light middleweight title was not on the line as the fight took place at a 155-pound catchweight and both fighters weighed in at precisely 155 pounds. Alvarez rehydrated to 171 pounds while Lara came into the ring at 166 pounds. In a very close and competitive fight that went to a split decision, Alvarez came out on top with two judges scoring 115 to 113 in favor of each fighter, and the final judge scoring 107 to 11 in favor of Alvarez. The final scorecard was controversial, as many observers considered it far too wide. According to CompuBox, Lara landed 55 jabs to 9 from Alvarez, who landed the jab at a 5% connect rate. Alvarez managed to land 88 power punches, while Lara landed 53 power punches. Lara's clean punching, defense, and movement were weighed against Alvarez's effective aggressiveness and power punching. Lara came out in dominant fashion, utilizing a stick-and-move style and capturing the early rounds. Although Alvarez struggled with Lara's 1-2 combinations, Lara's punches weren't thrown with sufficient power or frequency to dissuade him from consistently pressing the fight against a retreating Lara, and he was able to hammer away to Lara's body when he had him on the ropes. Lara's lead hand played a huge role in his 1-2 combination's effectiveness, but his output dropped as the fight progressed, and he became increasingly tentative. Alvarez was able to cut Lara with a lead left uppercut in the 7th round. Although the decision remains controversial, any talk of a rematch in the future was dismissed by Oscar de la Hoya, who went on to say, "No one wants a rematch."
Alvarez vs. Kirkland.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez vs. James Kirkland. In January 2015, Oscar de la Hoya announced that Alvarez and James Kirkland, 32-1, 28 KOs, had agreed to fight each other, although no date or venue was set, in a non-title light middleweight bout. The reason why the date was not set was due to the upcoming Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Manny Pacquiao fight not having an official date. In March, at the official press conference, the fight was announced to take place at the Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas on the 9th of May 2015, live on HBO, a week after the second May fight between Mayweather and Pacquiao. It marked the first fight of Alvarez's lucrative HBO contract. In front of 31,588, Alvarez defeated Kirkland via third-round KO. Kirkland came out aggressively, but Alvarez wobbled him and scored a knockdown via straight right hand in round 1. In the 3rd round, a counter-right uppercut sent Kirkland to the canvas. Alvarez ended the fight with a jab to the body, quickly followed by the right hand, creating the KO. Alvarez landed 87 of 150 punches thrown, 58%, and Kirkland landed 42 of 197, 21%. After the bout, Kirkland said, "I did not know I was knocked out." He was then taken to hospital to undergo a CT scan. The win for Alvarez set up a mega PPV fight between himself and WBC middleweight champion Miguel Cotto. The fight drew an average of 2.146 million viewers on HBO and peaked at 2.296 million, the highest viewership for HBO in 2015.
Alvarez vs. Cotto.
Main article, Miguel Cotto vs. Canelo Alvarez. On the 21st of November 2015, Alvarez won the WBC ring and lineal middleweight titles with a unanimous decision victory over Miguel Cotto in front of a sold-out crowd of 11,274 at the Mandalay Bay Event Center in Las Vegas. The fight took place at a catch weight of 155 pounds at Cotto's request. Although Cotto gave a tremendous effort, moving nicely throughout the fight, the judges clearly went for Alvarez's superior power and accuracy, with surprisingly wide scores of 170 to 111, 119 to 109, and 118 to 110. ESPN.com had the fight much closer, but still scored it in favor of Alvarez, 115 to 113. According to CompuBox, Alvarez landed 155 of 484 punches, 32%, and Cotto landed 129 of 6 and 29, 21%, with Alvarez landing the heavier blows and inflicting more damage. 2 months after the fight, the WBC awarded Alvarez the WBC Diamond Middleweight title at their headquarters in Mexico. According to HBO, the fight generated 900,000 buys on PPV, which equated to around $58 million in domestic revenue. This was the first time since 2002 that a PPV generated 900,000, which didn't include Mayweather, Pacquiao, or De La Hoya. That bout was a heavyweight title fight between Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson.
Alvarez vs. Khan.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez Amir Khan. In early 2016, it was announced that British boxer Amir Khan was moving up 2 weight divisions to fight Alvarez at middleweight for his WBC ring and lineal middleweight titles. The fight took place on the 7th of May 2016 at the new T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The bout was on HBO PPV. Khan kept his distance in the first 5 rounds, using his speed to come in and step out, which initially caused trouble for Alvarez. In round 6, Alvarez landed a devastating right hand that knocked out Khan. The fight generated a live gate of $7,470,350, according to figures released by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, NSAC. That total came from 13,072 tickets sold, far short of a sellout. The Alvarez-Khan gross places it 34th best in Nevada history. The fight drew close to 600,000 PPV buys. After the fight, Alvarez and his team invited middleweight champion Gennady GGG Golovkin into the ring to promote a future fight between them. During the post-fight interview with HBO's Max Kellerman, Alvarez stated, "Let's fight now." On the 18th of May 2016, Alvarez vacated the WBC title he defended in fighting Khan. The WBC immediately awarded the title to Gennady Golovkin. Return to light middleweight.
Alvarez versus Liam Smith.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Liam Smith. On the 24th of June, it was announced that Alvarez was to drop the extra pound to 154 and challenge 27-year-old WBO champion Liam Smith, 23-0-1, 13 KOs from England on the 17th of September 2016, in the main event of a card on HBO PPV. On the 18th of July, Golden Boy Promotions announced the bout would take place at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. After the MGM Grand in Las Vegas was the other venue looking to host the fight. Having fought his last 5 fights at his preferred 155-pound catchweight, Canelo said, "I am very pleased to announce my next fight against Liam Smith, a tremendous fighter with real knockout power and the WBO light middleweight world title owner. I have no doubt that this fight will be give and take, which will fill the expectations of the fans, and I will work with all the enthusiasm, as I always do, to get the upper hand on September 17th. In front of a record-breaking crowd of 51,240, Alvarez regained a world title at light middleweight following a devastating left hook to the body in round 9. Smith was also knocked down once in round 7 and once in round 8 in a fight where Alvarez was in control from the opening bell. Alvarez landed 157 punches from 422 thrown with a connect rate of 37%, compared to Smith landing 115 from 403 thrown, a connect rate of 29%. The fight drew an estimate of 300,000 PPV buys. Golden Boy president Eric Gomez spoke to Ring Magazine in December, stating that Alvarez had no immediate plans to vacate the WBO title and may fight in the first quarter of 2017 at 154, defending his world title. He also stated that there were still plans for Alvarez to fight Golovkin later in the year.
Alvarez versus Chavez Jr.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Following Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.'s comeback win against Dominic Brich in December 2016, he claimed he was back and ready to fight Golovkin at 168 pounds and Alvarez at a 164-pound catchweight. Negotiations began soon after for a potential HBO PPV fight to take place in 2017 on Cinco de Mayo weekend, as there was interest from both sides that a fight take place. De La Hoya said a fight with Golovkin would still be likely for September 2017. Golden Boy president Eric Gomez confirmed a catchweight of 165 pounds was agreed between both sides. WBC president Mauricio Suleiman was on board, saying he would likely get his organization involved in the bout and that it was a very attractive fight. On the 18th of December, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. spoke about the ongoing negotiations, saying Golden Boy were offering his son a small amount for the potential big PPV fight. He went on to claim his son was offered a $5 million purse with no mention he would get a cut of the PPV revenue. A counteroffer was submitted. A rematch clause was also discussed, which Chavez Jr. and his team had no problem with. Chavez Sr. went on to admit that he was fully aware Alvarez is the A-side in the fight and would settle for no less than 30 to 35% of the full revenue. On the 22nd of December, the WBO made Alvarez the mandatory challenger to the middleweight title, skipping the previous number 1 Avtandil Kurtzidze, which was considered controversial due to Alvarez currently not fighting at middleweight. Kurtzidze, who had 10 days to appeal decision, decided not to, 106-107. On the 24th of December, Alvarez and his team gave Chavez Jr. a week to accept the terms, which included a purse of $7 million, or he would consider other options, 108. On the 12th of January 2017, De La Hoya and Alvarez called for the contract to be signed, which was supposedly sent to Al Haymon, who advises Chavez Jr. and urged him to sign it, 109. A day later, Chavez Jr. claimed he had agreed to all the demands set by Alvarez and said that he would sign the contract. According to Chavez Jr., the new demands included a weight limit set at 164.5 pounds and a $6 million base purse plus PPV revenue percentages. On the 13th of January, Alvarez officially confirmed the fight to take place on the 6th of May 2017. A rematch clause was also put in place if Chavez Jr. wins the fight, and another clause for every pound Chavez Jr. weighs over the limit. He would be fined $1 million. On the 4th of February, Golden Boy Promotions announced that the fight would take place at the T-Mobile Arena in Paradise, Nevada. On the 22nd of February, Alvarez announced that he planned on vacating his WBO light middleweight title following the Chavez Jr. fight and fighting at middleweight. On the 3rd of March, the fight was announced to sell out with 20,000 tickets being sold after they initially went on sale to the public on the 20th of February. On the 11th of April, Alvarez spoke to boxing reporters in a teleconference and said that he would fight as a 160-pound middleweight after the Chavez Jr. fight. According to the NSAC, it was reported that Alvarez would earn $5 million and Chavez Jr. would earn $3 million before any shares of PPV. The figures would increase based on PPV sales. In front of a sold-out crowd of 20,510, Alvarez won the fight in dominant fashion via a shutout unanimous decision. All three judges scored it 108 for Alvarez. Chavez Jr. was very cautious throughout the fight. At times, he came forward and also had Alvarez against the ropes, but failed to throw any punches. This led to jeers from the crowd in the later rounds due to a lack of action. Alvarez spoke to HBO's Max Kellerman in the post-fight interview, talking about his fighting style. "Tonight, I showed I could move, I could box. I showed as a fighter, I can do all things. I thought I was going to showcase myself as a fighter that could throw punches, but he just wouldn't do it. I've shown I can do lots of things in the ring. Anything a fighter brings, I've shown I can showcase myself." CompuBox stats showed that Alvarez landed 228 of 604 his punches thrown, 38%, and Chavez Jr. landed 71 of 302, 24%. By the end of round 5, Alvarez landed 102 punches compared to Chavez Jr.'s 25 landed. Early figures revealed that the fight generated at least 1 million buys. A replay was shown on regular HBO a week later and drew an average of 769,000 viewers. This was the first boxing match to generate over 1 million PPV buys that didn't include Mayweather, Pacquiao, or De La Hoya since 2002, which saw Lennox Lewis retain his heavyweight world titles against Mike Tyson. Later sources confirmed the fight did close to 1.2 million buys, which means it would have generated around $80 million. Middleweight.
Alvarez versus Golovkin.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin. Immediately after the Chavez Jr. fight, Alvarez announced that he would next fight Gennady Golovkin on the 16th of September 2017 at a location to be determined. Golovkin, who stated he would not attend the fight, was joined by his trainer Abel Sanchez and promoter Tom Leffler. Golovkin joined him in the ring during the announcement to help promote their upcoming bout. Speaking through a translator, Alvarez said, "Golovkin, you are next, my friend. The fight is done. I've never feared anyone since I was 15 fighting as a professional. When I was born, fear was gone." When Golovkin arrived in the ring, he said, "I feel very excited. Right now is a different story. In September, it will be a different style, a big drama show. I'm ready. Tonight, first congrats to Canelo and his team. Right now, I think everyone is excited for September. Canelo looked very good tonight, and 100% he is the biggest challenge of my career. Good luck to Canelo in September." On the 9th of May, Eric Gomez, president of Golden Boy Promotions, told the LA Times that Alvarez had an immediate rematch clause in place on his contract, whereas Golovkin, if he loses, won't be guaranteed a rematch. De La Hoya later revealed in an interview with ESPN that the fight would also take place at the full middleweight limit of 160 pounds with no rehydration clauses, meaning Golovkin and Alvarez would be able to gain an unlimited amount of weight following the weigh-in. On the 5th of June, the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas was announced as the venue of the fight and would mark the first time Golovkin would fight in the state of Nevada. The AT&T Stadium, Madison Square Garden, and Dodger Stadium missed out on hosting the fight. Eric Gomez of Golden Boy Promotions said in a statement that Alvarez would fight for the IBF title, meaning he would participate in the second-day weigh-in, where the IBF requires that each boxer weighs no more than 10 pounds over the 160-pound limit. Although he said there was no word on whether Alvarez would fight for the WBC title, Alvarez claimed that he would not be. On the 7th of July 2017, Golden Boy and K2 Promotions individually announced the tickets had sold out. On the 15th of August, Golden Boy matchmaker Robert Diaz revealed that Alvarez would indeed attend the IBF mandatory second-day weigh-in and fully intended to fight for both the IBF title and the WBA title. He also made it clear that whilst Golovkin would still defend the WBC and IBO title, Alvarez would not pay their sanctioning fees. On the 22nd of August, IBF President Daryl Peoples announced that they would be dropping the mandatory second-day weigh-in for unification fights, meaning neither fighter is required to participate. However, they would still encourage them to do so. It was reported that Alvarez would earn a base minimum $5 million and Golovkin would earn $3 million before any shares of the revenue are added to their purses. On fight night, in front of a sold-out crowd of 22,358, Golovkin and Alvarez fought to a split draw, 118-110 Alvarez, 115-113 Golovkin, and 114-114. ESPN's Dan Rafael and HBO's Harold Letterman scored the fight 160-112 in favor of Golovkin. Judge Adelaide Bird's scorecard of 118-110 in favor of Alvarez was widely ridiculed. Many observers felt that Golovkin had won a narrow, closely contested fight, and while a draw was justifiable, a card that wide in favor of Alvarez was inexcusable. Nevertheless, Bob Bennett, director of the Nevada Athletic Commission, said that he had full confidence in Bird going forward. Despite the controversy, several mainstream media outlets referred to the bout as a classic. The fight started with both boxers finding their rhythm, Alvarez using his footwork and Golovkin establishing his jab. During the middle rounds, particularly between 4 and 8, Alvarez started each round quickly, but seemed to tire out after a minute, with Golovkin taking over and doing enough to win the rounds. The championship rounds were arguably the best rounds, and Alvarez started to counter more, and both fighters stood toe-to-toe exchanging swings, the majority of which missed. The draw saw Golovkin make his 19th consecutive defense, just one behind middleweight great Bernard Hopkins. CompuBox stats showed that Golovkin was the busier of the two, landing 218 of 703 thrown, 31%, while Alvarez was more accurate, landing 169 of his 505 thrown, 34%. Golovkin outlanded Alvarez in 10 of the 12 rounds. The replay, which took place a week later on HBO, averaged 726,000, peaking at 840,000 viewers. Speaking to Max Kellerman after the fight, Golovkin said, "It was a big drama show. The scoring is not my fault. I put pressure on him every round. Look, I still have all the belts. I am still the champion." Alvarez felt as though he won the fight. In the first rounds, I came out to see what he had. Then I was building from there. I think I won 8 rounds. I felt that I won the fight. I think I was superior in the ring. I won at least 7 or 8 rounds. I was able to counterpunch and made Gennady wobble at least 3 times. If we fight again, it's up to the people. I feel frustrated over my draw. Golovkin's trainer Abel Sanchez believed Judge Bird had her scorecard filled out before the first bell rang. Alvarez ruled out another fight in 2017, claiming he would return on Cinco de Mayo weekend in May 2018. At the post-fight press conference, Alvarez said through a translator, "Look, right now I want to rest. Whatever the fans want, Whatever the people want and ask for, we'll do. You know that's my style, but right now, who knows if it's in May or September. But one thing's for sure, this is my era, the era of Canelo. Golovkin's promoter Tom Loeffler stated that they would like an immediate rematch, but Golovkin, who prefers fighting at least 3 times in a calendar year, reiterated his desire to also fight in December. The fight surpassed Mayweather-Alvarez to achieve the 3rd highest gate in boxing history. ESPN reported the fight generated $27,959,850 from 17,318 tickets sold. 934 complimentary tickets were given out, according to the NSAC. Mayweather vs. Alvarez sold 16,146 tickets to produce a live gate of 20,003,150. The replay, which took place a week later on HBO, averaged 726,000, peaking at 840,000 viewers. The Los Angeles Times reported the fight generated 1.3 million domestic PPV buys. Although HBO didn't make an official announcement, it is believed that the revenue would exceed $100 million.
Alvarez vs. Golovkin Zagaim. What a perinder.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez vs. Gennady Golovkin 2. Immediately after the controversial ending, talks began for a rematch between Alvarez and Golovkin. Alvarez stated he would next fight in May 2018, whereas Golovkin was open to fighting in December 2017. ESPN reported that Alvarez, who only had the rematch clause in his contract, must activate it within 3 weeks of their fight. On the 19th of September, Golden Boy Promotions president Eric Gomez told ESPN that everyone on their side was interested in the rematch and they would hold discussions with Tom Loeffler in the coming days. Ring TV reported that the negotiations would begin on the 22nd of September. On the 24th of September, Gomez said the rematch would likely take place in the first week of May 2018 or as early as March, if a deal could be worked. Despite ongoing negotiations for the rematch, at the 55th Annual Convention in Baku, Azerbaijan on the 2nd of October, the WBC officially ordered a rematch. Gomez reacted by telling ESPN, "Regardless of if they did or didn't order the rematch, we are going to try to make it happen. We'll do whatever it takes to make it happen." On the 7th of November, Gomez indicated the negotiations were going well, and Alvarez would make a decision in regards to the rematch in the following weeks. It was believed that Golden Boy would wait until after David Lemieux and Billy Joe Saunders fought for the latter's WBO title on the 16th of December 2017 before making a decision. On the 15th of November, Matchroom's Eddie Hearn, promoter of Daniel Jacobs, stated that he approached Tom Loeffler regarding a possible rematch between Golovkin and Jacobs if the Alvarez-Golovkin rematch failed to take place. On the 20th of December, Gomez announced that the negotiations were close to being finalized after Alvarez gave Golden Boy the go-ahead to write up the contracts. On the 29th of January 2018, HBO finally announced the rematch would take place in May on Cinco de Mayo weekend. On 22nd of February, the T-Mobile Arena was again selected as the fight's venue. According to WBC President Mauricio Suleiman, Alvarez would fight Golovkin for their title this time around. In March 2018, Alvarez tested positive for the banned substance clenbuterol ahead of the fight. Adding to the controversy, Golovkin's trainer Abel Sanchez claimed that Alvarez had his hands wrapped in an illegal manner for the first fight. On the 23rd of March, the NSAC temporarily suspended Alvarez due to his 2 positive tests for the banned substance clenbuterol. Alvarez was required to appear at a commission hearing, either in person or via telephone, on the issue on the 10th of April. The commission would decide at the hearing whether the fight would be permitted to go ahead as scheduled. On the 28th of March, MGM Resorts International, who owned the T-Mobile Arena, started to offer full refunds to anyone who had already purchased tickets for the bout. They wrote, "In the event a fan requested a refund, they could get one at the original point of sale and in full." The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported the news. The hearing was rescheduled for 18th of April as Bob Bennett filed a complaint against Alvarez. On the 3rd of April, Alvarez officially withdrew from the rematch. Golden Boy mentioned during a press conference, "It was hinted that Alvarez would likely not be cleared at the hearing, and they would not have enough time to promote the fight." On the 13th of April, an unofficial source stated that Alvarez had checked into a private hospital in Guadalajara for an arthroscopy knee surgery. A spokesperson for Golden Boy later said it was a cosmetic surgery. After surgery, Alvarez posted a picture on social media with a caption reading, "I share that today I had to undergo an arthroscopic surgery to repair the internal femoral cartilage and eliminate a pathological fold of my right knee." Eric Gomez of Golden Boy later confirmed that Alvarez had a cyst taken out of his knee and there were no serious issues with his knee. At the hearing, Alvarez was given a 6-month suspension, backdated to his first drug test fail on the 17th of February, meaning the ban would end on the 17th of August 2018. The Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, VEDA, stated that Alvarez was not enrolled in their testing program. His promoter, De La Hoya, then announced that Alvarez would return to the ring on the Mexican Independence Day weekend. According to Golovkin, on the 27th of April, before he defeated Vanes Martirosyan, a fight with Alvarez in the fall was still a priority. During a conference call, he stated it was the biggest fight in the world and beneficial for all parties involved. Although Golovkin stated the rematch had a 10% chance of happening, Eric Gomez and Tom Loeffler agreed to meet and start negotiating after 5th of May. One of the main issues preventing the rematch to take place was the purse split. Alvarez wanted 65-35 in his favor, the same terms Golovkin agreed to initially. However, Golovkin wanted a straight 50-50 split. On the 6th of June, Golovkin was stripped of his IBF title due to not adhering to the IBF's rules. The IBF granted Golovkin an exception to fight Martirosyan, although they would not sanction the fight and told Golovkin's team to start negotiating and fight mandatory challenger Sergey Derevyanchenko by the 3rd of August 2018. The IBF released a statement in detail explaining its decision to strip Golovkin of the belt. On the 7th of June, Golovkin's team stated they would accept a 55-45 split in favor of Alvarez. 5 days later, on the 12th of June, Golden Boy gave Golovkin a 24-hour deadline to accept a 57.5 to 42.5 split in Alvarez's favor, or they would explore other fights. At this time, Golden Boy were already in light negotiations with Eddie Hearn for a fight against Daniel Jacobs instead. At the same time, Loeffler was working closely with Frank Warren to match Saunders with Golovkin at the end of August. Golovkin declined the offer and De La Hoya stated there would be no rematch. Despite this, some sources indicated both sides were still negotiating after a Hail Mary idea came to light. Hours later, De La Hoya confirmed via his Twitter account that terms had been agreed and the fight would indeed take place on the 15th of September at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Golovkin revealed to ESPN he agreed to 45%. Alvarez started training for the bout on the 14th of June and stated his intention to apply for his boxing license on the 18th of August. It was confirmed that both boxers would not physically come face-to-face with each other until the fight week. A split-screen press conference took place on the 3rd of July. On the 3rd of September, due to a majority vote of the panel, it was announced that the vacant ring middleweight title would be contested for the bout. Doug Fisher wrote, "We posed the question to the ratings panel, which, in a landslide, voted in favor of the magazine's 160-pound championship being up for grabs when the two stars clash at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The IBO's middleweight title was only at stake for Golovkin as Canelo refused to pay the sanctioning fee." In front of a sellout crowd of 21,965, the fight was again not without controversy as Alvarez defeated Golovkin via majority decision after 12 rounds. Alvarez was favored by judges Dave Moretti and Steve Weisfeld, both scoring the bout 115 to 113. The third judge, Glenn Feldman, scored it 114 to 114. The result was disputed by fans, pundits, and media. Of the 18 media outlets scoring the bout, 10 ruled in favor of Golovkin, 7 scored a draw, while 1 scored the bout for Alvarez, 195 and 96. The scorecards showed how close the bout was, with the judges splitting 8 rounds. After 9 rounds, all 3 judges had their scorecards reading 87-84 for Alvarez. The fight was much different from the first bout in terms of action. Alvarez, who was described by Golovkin's team as a runner, altered his style and became more aggressive. Both boxers found use of their respective jabs from the opening round, with Golovkin using his jab more as the fight went on. Big punches were landed by both fighters during the bout, with both Alvarez and Golovkin showing excellent chins. Despite the tense build-up, both boxers showed each other respect after the fight. Alvarez made good use of his body attack, landing 46 compared to Golovkin's 6 landed. CompuBox stats showed that Golovkin landed 234 of 879 punches thrown, 27%, and Alvarez landed 202 of his 622 punches, 33%. Golovkin had the edge in jabs, landing 118 out of 547, 21.6%, compared to 59 out of 256, 23% for Alvarez. However, Alvarez had the edge in power punches, landing 143 out of 366, 39.1%, compared to 116 out of 332, 34.9% for Golovkin. In 8 of the rounds, Golovkin outlanded Alvarez in total punches, whereas Alvarez outlanded him in power punches in 9 of the rounds. Alvarez stated that the fight was a clear victory, and that in the end, it was a victory for Mexico. And again, it was an opportunity. And I want to shout out to my opponent, the best in the sport of boxing. I am a great fighter, and I showed it tonight. If the people want another round, I'll do it again. But for right now, I will enjoy time with my family. Golovkin did not take part in the post-fight and made his way backstage, where he received stitches for a cut over his right eye. He later responded to the defeat, explaining that, "I'm not going to say who won tonight, because the victory belongs to Canelo, according to the judges. I thought it was a very good fight for the fans and very exciting. I thought I fought better than he did." Both fighters were open to a trilogy. The fight generated a live gate of $23,473,500 from 16,732 tickets sold. This was lower than the first bout, but still the 4th largest grossing gates in Nevada boxing history. The fight sold 1.1 million PPV buys, lower than the first bout. However, due to being priced at $84.95, it generated more revenue at around $94 million too. Super middleweight,
Alvarez versus Fielding.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Rocky Fielding. In October 2018, Alvarez announced that he would move up to the super middleweight division for the first time in his career to fight 31-year-old British boxer Rocky Fielding, 27-1, 15 KOs, at Madison Square Garden in New York City, New York, on the 15th of December 2018, for the WBA regular super middleweight title. On the 17th of October 2018, DAZN announced that it had signed a 5-year, $365 million deal with Alvarez, under which his next 11 fights would be broadcast in the U.S. by the subscription sports streaming service. The deal would begin with Alvarez versus Fielding and replace his expired contract with HBO, which had also announced its discontinuation of boxing telecasts. Alvarez won the one-sided bout via third-round technical knockout after repeatedly downing Fielding with body shots. Following the 4th knockdown suffered by Fielding, referee Ricky Gonzalez stopped the match. Return to middleweight,
Alvarez versus Jacobs.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Daniel Jacobs.
Alvarez defeated IBF middleweight champion Daniel Jacobs via unanimous decision, 1-15, 1-13, 1-15, 1-13, 1-16, 1-12 on 4 May 2019 in a unification bout at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Alvarez defended his WBA, Super, WBC, ring and lineal middleweight titles whilst obtaining Jacobs' IBF middleweight title.
Light heavyweight,
Alvarez versus Kovalev.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Sergey Kovalev. On the 13th of September 2019, Alvarez announced via social media that he would move up 2 weight classes to challenge WBO light heavyweight title holder Sergey Kovalev on the 2nd of November 2019 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. After a competitive first 10 rounds in which Kovalev found success with his jab while Alvarez largely utilized power punches, the latter produced a left hook, straight right combination to stop Kovalev in the 11th round to become a 3-division world champion. At the time of the stoppage, Alvarez led 96-94 on 2 of the judges' scorecards, with the other scorecard even at 95-95. He joined Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Mike McCallum as the only former junior middleweight champions in history to win a title at light heavyweight. Among them, only Hearns and Alvarez himself established their careers at welterweight and claimed the title at the 175-pound limit. After the fight, Kovalev suggested that he had always been unlikely to win the fight due to the grueling schedule of back-to-back training camps, which resulted from the short period of time between fighting Anthony Yarde on the 24th of August and Alvarez on the 2nd of November, and the fight included a rehydration clause. But he had agreed to fight the latter regardless due to the high financial incentive, reported to be $12 million. Alvarez himself was reported to have received a purse of $35 million for the fight. Kovalev's claims were in contrast to his remarks prior to the fight, "But I wasn't hurt in my last fight against Yard. I didn't get any injuries." Kovalev added, "I recharged my batteries. I'm fine." Alvarez responded by calling Kovalev a bad loser. For his 2019 campaign, Alvarez was named the Fighter of the Year by the Ring Magazine, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and the Boxing Writers Association of America. Return to super middleweight. On the 6th of November 2020, Alvarez was released from his contract with Golden Boy Promotions after a lawsuit was settled for breach of contract.
Alvarez versus Callum Smith.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Callum Smith. On the 17th of November via social media, Alvarez announced he would be facing undefeated WBA Super and the Ring Super middleweight champion Callum Smith on the 19th of December 2020, with the vacant WBC title also at stake. The fight was held at the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas. Alvarez's trainer, Eddie Reynoso, revealed that his fighter had been sparring with undefeated heavyweight Frank Sanchez in preparation for the bout. On the night, Alvarez controlled the action over 12 rounds, inflicting Smith with a detached left biceps injury as he won by unanimous decision with scores of 109 to 109, 109, 179, and 111. After the win, Canelo became a 4-division world champion.
Alvarez versus Yildirim.
Main article, Canelo Alvarez versus Avni Yildirim. It was announced on the 20th of January 2021 that Alvarez would be defending his titles against WBC mandatory challenger Avni Yildirim on the 27th of February at the Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida. The bout attracted criticism due to many perceiving Yildirim, who had not been in the ring since he lost a technical split decision to Anthony Dirrell 2 years prior in February 2019, to be vastly overmatched. Yildirim had been named to the mandatory position as a result of the controversial nature of his loss to Dirrell. However, he had remained sidelined due to injury and the COVID-19 pandemic. Alvarez, who was mandated to face Yildirim in order to retain the WBC title despite being heavily favored, was dismissive of the critics, saying, "I really don't have to give any explanation because they're never going to be happy with anything." Yildirim, has lots of courage. He can be dangerous at any moment because he is a strong fighter. In a one-sided fight, Alvarez defeated Yildirim by third-round corner retirement after Yildirim's corner threw in the towel at the end of the third round. According to CompuBox stats, Alvarez outlanded Yildirim 67-40% to 11-11% in total punches and 58-59% to 4-22% in power punches. In the third round, Alvarez threw 53 power punches. Alvarez later stated that he had contracted COVID-19 prior to the fight and only had 1 month to train. He instead wanted a 24-foot ring. Thanks for watching. Be good.